Well, hello, and this is Hello Chaos, a podcast for founders in the thick of it. The messy middle is what we like to call it. The questions, the pressure, the chaos no one puts on LinkedIn is what we go over. No fairy tales here, just the real work of what it takes to start and build a business. Today we have on the show Frank McShane. He is the founder of Square Peg Consulting. I'm so excited to have you on the show, Frank. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Jennifer.
All right. Well, start out telling us like what inspired you to start Square Peg Consulting? How did you get into starting your own company?
Yeah. Well, I had most recently led two different companies here in Washington State.
So this is not your first rodeo.
No. And then we went through a sale in both of those. And after that, I decided that, I had enough of working for other people. And and so I decided to look around, what could I do for myself? And I had come out of the consulting world, maybe 20 years ago, and I always loved the work. I thought it was the best work and the worst lifestyle combined. And because I was on the road constantly. And
Right.
so I figured if I could control the travel and stay regional, then I could go back and do that work that I enjoyed so much. And then I picked a few areas to focus on, and I'm lucky enough I can be somewhat selective about my customers and clients and the kind of projects that I do. So that appealed to me, that effort, and so I embarked on that 8 years ago now, and it's worked out well, and I've kind of met my expectations in terms of reward and enjoyment, and so that got me into it.
Which type of client? So when you get to be, which is so nice when you have your own company, of you do have that freedom of I get to choose who I get to work with. What kind of companies or clients that you enjoy working with that kind of fit that model, that mold?
Well, I think when you're starting out, you're not as selective.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I went through that phase for a while, but over the past 5 or 6 years, I've gotten to be able to be a little more selective, and I love working in operations-oriented businesses.
Okay.
So that would be manufacturing and distribution, that kind of thing. But what I'm really looking for is clients who are wanting to make some significant changes of some kind and want some help in doing so, and particularly in things that they themselves don't have a lot of experience doing. So that's what I'm looking for, is that kind of match. Operations improvement, strategy, and willingness and openness to change. Those are
the mindset is, you've got to find the right mindset, for sure.
Yeah.
So you went from being, working for somebody, then work with yourself, and I completely feel you of when I kind of went through that phase, the first 3 years of like, we're taking everything, and then you can start kind of paring back. But was there anything that was like a shocker to you of when you started the company? Was there any kind of like myth that you were like, this is not what I thought this was going to be, or this is not what they said?
Well, I guess some things, the sales process probably took longer than I thought it would, so I had to learn to adjust to that, and to not focus so much on selling, but really, I had a colleague who advised me that said, if you want to be a consultant and sell your services, just start consulting in the first meeting, right? And don't make a presentation or anything. Just start consulting. And so that helped a lot, right? That helped speed things up, because they could see what you're capable of earlier on, right? As opposed to just telling them what you can do, they're actually seeing it in action. And so that was huge help for me.
Yeah, I think that I got advice from another founder that was similar to that. Just like, give them a taste, but also get to the know faster in sales. That was an aha. Like, I was like, what? Because I was chasing. No, you want to work with me? Like let's. And they're like, no. Every one of your meetings should be, look, it's either yes, no, or not yet. And I was like, that was a That was a big aha for me
Quick
because,
no is usually better than a long, long yes.
right, right. Like, so what's been the most rewarding part?
Well, the work I do is pretty measurable and tangible. We're either looking at increasing output or improving processes and improving quality and and improving the bottom line. That's the biggest piece of it. And seeing that occur in a fairly short period of time
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the satisfaction of that, not only for me, but for the clients and their teams, that they feel like they're really making progress when they can see it
Yeah.
happening. A lot of times they've been struggling with trying to make changes and trying to improve things, and they're so caught up in the day-to-day details that they have a hard time stepping back to see
Yeah.
where should we really focus our time and effort.
That's right. Outside perspective is so powerful.
It's an unfair advantage really to have to do that. So yeah, that's helping them, and then seeing those lights go off in their heads, and knowing when I'm finished, knowing that they're going to continue on with this and keep going, then that's pretty rewarding too.
Yeah. So where did the name come from? The Square Peg Consulting.
Well, one of the first things I wanted I used to work with a tool when I started in business called the predictive index, which it helps you define the behavior requirements of a job,
Yeah.
and then it assesses the people, right?
Yeah.
So you can see if you got,
I was a PI assessor
oh well,
back in the day. Yeah, so I'm very familiar.
you
I
know it.
love it.
So, it's always about matching the people with the
That's
job,
right.
right, as closely as possible. And so that reminded me of the square peg and the round hole. So that was kind of the starting point. But it fit for the clients who've been, like I said, banging away on the peg in the square peg into a round hole
Mm-hmm.
of solving a problem, but it wasn't working, right? And not only that, you get all this collateral damage, the pieces of the peg go all over the place and you got to clean it all up later. So that kind of was the theme, is let's pick things that really do fit the situation
Yeah,
and proceed on those.
that's right. Do you recommend when you work with companies that they do a PI assessment and
I just, I tried to sell it for a while. That was one of those long sales processes.
mm-hmm.
Now I just tell them, this is part of the service.
Right.
And so you're going to sign up for predictive index for at least a year, and we're going to assess your people and assess
And the
your work.
positions. Yeah.
And just there's no argument at that point in time. They just
But
okay,
just do it. Yeah.
yeah,
Do you see the aha, the little light bulbs going off of when people get to see what their drives are?
oh yeah.
And yeah.
And
Um,
particularly, if you're working with a team and they can see each other, and so that's kind of interesting. But then they see themselves, and it's,
yeah.
well, if it's accurate about all these other people, it's probably accurate about you too. And sometimes they are a little shocked sometimes about where they come out. But,
Where they find, yeah. Um, so now that you're 8 years into the business, is there I'll call it, system or a process change that you implemented that completely changed your day to day?
that's a great question. Like I said, I think it was just it was really the change in how I went about looking for clients. I was doing cold calling and all those kind of doing, meetings, and that just was a waste of time in most cases. And so I just really started working through my network of people who I'd worked with over the years and asking them for help and referrals. And I think a little humility probably helped a little bit in that effort. I got opportunity to speak on a few occasions. And so it was just getting myself out into the market and helping people understand what I can do, as opposed to trying to tell them what I can do. They
They
began
just
to understand it. And that really changed the dynamic quite a bit.
Yeah. So as you're moving forward, what's been the most significant challenge, or what's as you're facing kind of growing and continuing your business, what's your big challenge that
Yeah.
you face?
Well, I think a lot of one-man shop consultants have this problem, which is the peaks and valley kind of
Mm,
thing. Because when you're engaged with somebody, and mine are mostly on site, and I'm deeply engaged in the operation and the people, working with the people on site. And so when I'm doing that, I'm not out developing more work
Right.
stuff, And so at the end of an engagement, which has been fine, it's been rewarding and financially and otherwise. But then you gotta keep that pipeline going, and
Right.
that's probably the challenge. Otherwise, you get into this really herky jerky.
Right. Oh yeah. The pipeline management I think is ugh, is so hard. Well, how do you as you know you are a one man, shop and working with multiple companies, how do you balance all of the different businesses, personalities, the workload? How are you dealing? Like, what kind of routines or disciplines that do you have to keep everything in line and focused?
Well, I try and practice what I preach, which is, focus where the biggest returns are going to be.
Mm,
And so that helps me kind of filter out some of the things. So learning to say no is kind of a big part of that, right? And
yeah,
like I said, fortunately, I'm able to be a little more selective now, and so that helps. I'm trying to get a little bit more balance in my life, and I'm not that far from retiring probably, and so I'm just trying to pick and choose what I really enjoy doing, so it doesn't
yeah,
seem like work really at all.
right. Isn't that the goal? If it's when you love what you do, it's not really work.
And I'm working with a client now, a paper mill here in Longview, and it's 2 miles away from my house,
Mm,
which is when I was with Ernst and Young for a while, and we always had this saying that you had to come from at least 100 miles away to have any credibility,
mm,
because the prophet in his own town, does
right.
what he listens to. So I'm breaking that rule, but it's been a lot of fun because I can come home for lunch, I can go back,
That's right.
back and forth as much as I want to, and that's been a real pleasure. So managing the travel was a big part of it, because that was a huge chunk of time
Oh
in
yeah.
previous consulting world, and that's freed up a lot of time for both work and pleasure.
Yeah. So as you're working with with companies that are looking at what do you see any kind of thread of like observations of this is what you tend to see the most
Mhm.
from I call it stuck companies?
Sure. Yes. First of all, I learned it by doing it to myself when I was running I got lucky. I got recruited out of consulting to help run a very large paper company. And then we went through a sale, and I didn't get the memo. So I ended up as president after the sale, working for a private equity company, but a good one, not the quick flip types. It was
Yeah.
really somebody they wanted to invest and grow the business. And we did some real in-depth analysis on profitability by customer and by product,
Hmm.
because the previous regime really was trying to be all things to all people, and that was causing a lot of issues.
Right.
And so when we looked at all that, we really found out there's not very many customers or not very many products that are really generating the cash,
Hmm.
and we've proliferated all these others just because somebody asked for them, and nobody really looked to see, what are we really making any money at this? And so we went from a $700 million business losing 70 million a year to
Hmm.
a $500 million business making 70 million a year by uncovering what were the really, the cash generating customers and products. And so that I've used that approach with my clients to help them see the same thing, because they tend to look at revenue. All revenue is good. All customers are good,
Yeah.
and they tend to be more focused on the top line, and they look at the bottom line. And as long as there's something there, they don't tend to look any closer, and so they don't see the moving pieces
Right.
lead to that bottom line result. And so that's what I help them see. And every single time it's an aha, like, wow, there's only, like I have a distribution, lube and fuel distribution client. And when we did the analysis with them, they had 11% of their customers generated 80% of their contribution, their cash profit.
Right.
And 71% of the customers only generated 5%
Hmm.
of that. And so, they were spending so much time for so little return with all these customers.
Right.
They've grown with them over the years, right? They started locally and small, but now they've grown into a large, sophisticated business dealing with other large, sophisticated
Right.
businesses who weren't getting the time and attention because they're taking all this
Right.
time with all these other guys that aren't really paying off that much. So that was a huge eye opener for them, and
Yeah. It's funny when you use data.
that's always been my
It's
go-to, is just to beat them over the head with their own data, not your
right.
data, but it's their own.
It's their own, yeah. And we's like data is it's not just what the data is, but what's the insight that you're uncovering from
Yeah,
that and the story that you're able to tell. And then, yeah,
yeah. There's some simple things. Whenever I look at a P&L, it's always in account order.
right,
And I said, well, let's do it in descending order, in terms of dollars.
right,
And immediately, the big stuff pops to the top, and they go, well, that's 80% of our costs right there. I say, yeah. Why don't we focus on those and quit worrying about all this other little stuff down here?
right.
So just simple things like that really help them see their business differently
Mm-hmm.
and understand their business, what's really generating the cash, which
Right,
is the lifeblood of the business, right? And that's my goal, is to help them really become a sustainable business with money they can use to keep growing and doing it much more in a focused way,
right,
targeted, as opposed to just take anybody who shows up, right?
right. It's we work with a lot of companies too, and it's amazing how they don't look at their data in that perspective, or then create an action plan to go, okay, now let's do this focus of we want to find, like you said, the 11% that's generating 80% of, let's find more of those people.
Yeah, that's right.
And then create an action plan, do that. We find that there's a lot of are missing that. They're
Mm-hmm.
just spending money and marketing. It's just a checklist, and it's not a focused effort
Right.
of, like with intention,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
using using their own data.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And then looking at the sales force, using tools like the predictive index to
That's right.
see, okay, who can really go after these larger, you know, opportunities.
Right.
And you end up finding you don't need as many salespeople because, a small sale is almost as difficult as a big one.
That's right.
So why don't we just focus on the big ones, and we'll, let the other ones go, or we will, treat them, use AI or something to do.
Right. Use a different, method or system or process to, to
Yeah,
process those. Absolutely.
exactly.
So, what have you discovered about yourself in this journey?
Yeah. Well, just the fact I could survive on my own.
Yeah.
I had never done that before. I worked with Coca-Cola. I
Right.
worked with Ernst& Young. At the time, was the biggest consulting firm in the world. And then the paper company was, 700 million. So I'd always been in big organizations with lots of resources and support and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden, it was just me.
Yeah. You're like, my parachute has been stripped.
And yeah, who's going to, oh, it's me, that kind of, so that probably is the biggest. And fortunately, I had a lot of support from my wife and my kids and colleagues, et cetera, have been a big help.
Yeah.
I was lucky to have a bunch of really good mentors over the years, and so all of that has paid off in being able to survive on my own.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you I gave you a magic wand and you could change two things about your business, what two things would you change?
Let's see, I think I'd like to be able to do more work remotely, which
Mm.
I think is doable because of, like, the analysis. There's always a need for that in-person meetings up front, right, and
Right.
build some rapport. But after that, I think most of the analysis work I can do remotely. So cutting down even more on travel would be a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, I have been able to keep it pretty regional. And then I think just learning more, the I've been playing around with Copilot and Chat GPT and those kind of things, and learning how to help my clients
Hmm.
work with that would be, I think it's a whole new opportunity from a consulting point of view, right?
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
that
Are you
they,
seeing are you seeing that the some of the manufacturers embracing AI as part of their systems and process and workflows, or is it still foreign to them?
it's still it's a little daunting for them, I think,
Mm,
and they're worried about what impact it's going to have, and but they don't use it, and so the ones that
right.
are starting to use it are finding it to be tremendous help. We've done a few analyses in the paper company I'm working with right now. We're trying to improve the throughput on the finishing department. And
Mm-hmm.
so we looked at downtime issues and quality issues and all the things that reduce the output.
Right.
And so we got a report of that for last year. And I said, well, let's just, put it in Copilot and see
Right.
what it says. And so they did that. And, out comes this great analysis and report, et cetera. I mean, it's a little scary because, like, do you need a consultant? Now you can just
Right.
profile, but helping them understand that, and then now the real question is, okay, now what? What do you do with
Right.
this
Right.
information?
That's where I think the experience comes in is the tools are there and they're fantastic and
Mhm.
but it's how do you design the prompt? But also then when you read the end, then what do you do with it?
Right.
And how do you take the next step? Yeah.
Yeah. How do you manage change in your area? I mean, that's the thing I've probably always had to do is help manage change, and that's all people skills and
Right.
strategy and communication and all those kinds of things that make it that they have trouble. They don't know how to do that, right? Because they
That's right.
haven't. They just do what they do, and
Especially
occasionally,
some yeah, especially some of these legacy companies that they're rooted in their departments, the system, like it's hard to get them to shift.
hmm hmm yeah, yeah. Either they don't want to, or they're so they keep getting caught in the day to day fires that they got to put out,
Right.
and they just don't have time, or they think they don't have time to
Right.
change. And yeah, for a little while it's more work, but if you can prevent those fires instead of putting them out, then you're going to free up more time. And
That's right. So if you summed up your journey in one word, what would your word be?
I think discovery would be my
Mm,
word. Like I didn't set out with a plan, right? And I just kind of picked a direction to go in and then see what happens. And
yeah.
and even literally, I when I left Coca-Cola, I picked up and just moved. I kept traveling out west to the orange juice processing plants we
Mm,
owned and the orange groves and that kind of stuff. So I was doing some work out there. And then I get in plane and go back to Houston, which is where Coca-Cola Foods is headquartered.
yeah.
And I kept thinking, well, why did I do that? I really like it out west. So I decided just to pick up and head out west. And that's when I came across a small kind of boutique consulting firm, very operations oriented, and got into that and found I loved it, but that was all by accident, essentially.
Right.
Um, so I wouldn't say it's quite accidental, but it's like I said, it's just a journey of discovery and finding something they really like to do and then pursuing more of that and then trying to do that in bigger and bigger
Yeah.
stages over time.
That's great. I love that word. We ask every guest that comes on and we rarely have repeats and I think discovery is that's a great word. I mean that we have the same themes as founders and a lot of our threads are very similar, but we all have different words and I
Yeah.
love it. So if you look ahead to the next chapter, what word do you want to describe that chapter?
Well, I live in a blue collar town, and I sense that most people's goal is to get to retirement,
Mm.
and then golf and fish and hunt and stuff like that. that's never really appealed to me. And so, and I keep wondering, why are you doing something meaningful in your retirement, right? Are you
Yeah.
to make a difference to the community, your neighborhood, whatever, pick something. So that's what I'm hoping is what I'll be doing the next however long I've got, is do something meaningful. Um, and it has a positive impact on the rest of the world somehow. I've become really interested in the climate change world and somewhat pessimistic about our ability and willpower to make a difference in that
Mm-hmm.
on our own. And there's a whole field called geoengineering, which is actually changing things in the environment to help reduce the impact of climate change. So I'm kind of interested in exploring some more of that as I get more time to do so.
Yeah. That's that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's a brand new and controversial to some.
Well,
Yeah,
emerging kind of an emerging
exactly.
topic in the industry. So if we met a year from now, what win would we be celebrating?
Well, hopefully, healthy still. That's a big one. We're planning to move within this year to a little bit bigger town, not a big city, but a little bit bigger town, and a smaller house. We got a couple acres and a pretty good sized house right now, and it's just getting to be more than we can keep up with. So we're going to downsize. So that on the personal side, that would be a win
That's a big win.
to
Yeah.
make that move and have that be successful.
You said you're in Washington State? What part of Washington are you in?
I'm in Longview, Washington, which is southwest Washington, kind of about an hour north of Portland, Oregon.
Okay. Oh, beautiful country. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty around here for sure, definitely. And we're both from the southeast, and we're not going back. So
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
he has gotten us before.
Yeah. My mom and sister live in Tacoma. So that's
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, that's a potential target for moving is up somewhere up that way.
Yeah, it's so pretty. I mean, my sister lived in Seattle for, I don't know, 15 years, and then they moved to Tacoma, and uh it's more intimate and walkable, and I guess
Oh
it has
man,
more of a hometown feel.
you bet. Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So pretty. So pretty. Well, what advice do you have for other founders or other business leaders, either that you give or maybe somebody that advice that you've been given that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, one of the pieces of advice that I was given a long time ago, but actually my father told me this. He said that people will support what they help create,
Mm,
right? And so a lot of times in leader roles, we think it's our job to come up with a solution and get it implemented and get it fixed. And if they just allow people in on the process a little bit earlier, like, figuring out the menu as opposed to just serving the meal, then I think that, you'll find you'll get a lot more buy-in and you'll make a lot faster. It takes a little longer up front, but
yeah,
you get a lot faster overall. And then in terms of the business leaders in general, it's, don't just look at every revenue dollar the same. They're not.
yeah,
And it's what you keep from that dollar that's the important part. And the cost, understanding the cost to serve different customers, which often the financial statements don't tell you that,
right,
right? And so understanding that, and then understanding how to focus your people where the returns are really going to be better, that as soon as you can. Obviously startups, you need cash and you need people, you need customers, but pretty quickly you need to start being a little more selective
yeah.
and focused.
No, that's good advice. Yeah, we always, try to plot your customer on like some kind of whether it's a pyramid or, on a plan, and try to look at them
Mm-hmm.
a little bit differently. Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that quote. Is that a Dale Carnegie? People help support the world people support the world they help to create.
Yeah.
Isn't that yeah?
Yeah.
How to win friends and influence other. It stays true to that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. When you go into a company, how do you win? Like, Do you have any techniques of how do you win them over to get or to let so that their guard's not up and like, okay, here's this guy that's coming in, he's going to judge us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they get a lot of that as a consultant, but when they find out that's not why you're there, it's always a good thing. So mostly I just come in and listen. I try not to have any preconceived notions about what needs to be done because every situation is different.
Yeah.
And I tell them I got a big toolbox, but I'm not opening it until we really understand what's going on here.
Right.
And I think they appreciate that, just understanding their current state and why it is that way. Because most everybody's doing what makes sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can understand that first, then you can start to figure out where are some opportunities to do things differently and help them understand why we're going to do that.
Right.
That's usually the part that gets left out is the why. For example, in this current engagement, we were looking at all the downtime and the lost quality paper and all that kind of stuff. And we said, I asked the CFO to please tell me, what's an hour of downtime worth to this in this particular business? And it's $23,000 an hour, and in profit, not sales, in actual contribution. And so when I came back, I said, did you guys know that each hour is worth $23,000? And they went, they were like blown away, like, no. And they measure downtime in minutes, which makes it, seem so small.
Right.
But I said, let's convert it to hours and days. How many of those have you had?
Right.
And they were just, shocked about that. And so, like I said, listening for a while and understanding and showing that you understand, and then start to bring in some new data and new perspectives. I think that's how I typically approach things.
Yeah. And then they're like, Frank's our hero.
Yeah. Well, he's not here to beat us up anyway.
Right. Yeah. So. He's not here to like eliminate our jobs. He's here to help us.
And it's important to have the leadership on site set that tone too, that Frank is here to help us, not to judge us. I mean, that can't come from me. It has to come from the client leadership too. And so I spend a lot of time up front with that group to help figure out how we're going to communicate and position what we're doing here.
Right.
So, yeah.
And help them become better leaders.
Then it does. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they are very appreciative.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, this has been wonderful. I've loved our conversation, Frank.
Good. Me too. Thank you.
Yeah. And before we go, where can people get a hold of you, learn more about Square Peg Consulting, or, help do what you're doing?
Sure. Well, website is SQRPEGconsulting.com. Somebody else had grabbed the Square Peg name, but that's the first place. Email is fvm@sqrpegconsulting.com. You can call me up, 3562-1077. LinkedIn, I have a YouTube page of Square Peg Consultants. And I got about 60 or so little video vignettes of different improvement opportunities and those kinds of things that you can, it's 3 or 4 minutes each. So nothing too long.
Perfect.
I think people could get some ideas out of that.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. We'll basically, we'll for sure tag everything. And when we launch the episode, I'm going to go check out that YouTube.
Good.
For sure. But thank you. It was fun chatting with you.
You too. Thanks.
And that's a wrap on today's chaos, but the work does not stop here. If this episode felt fun and familiar, you're not alone. So subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It really does help founders find their way through the noise and the clutter of everything that's out there. And if you're really craving clarity, not more chaos, our sponsor, Bright Marketing, offers a founder clarity sprint designed to help you get unstuck, focused, and moving forward with confidence. You can explore that and more founder tools and episodes at Orange Whip. That's orangewip.com, or shoot an email to hello@orangewhip.com. And until next time, stay curious, stay scrappy, and remember, we are all a work in progress. See you again next week.